Brian Wood, Scott Beck, John Krasinski. Yeah. So I guess the story was originally by Brian Woods and Scott Beck.
Yeah.
And then for this, which originally had one line, but then
he was brought on as director, made some changes.
Yeah. Also, the actor Millicent, the deaf child.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually deaf in real life. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw she taught some of the crew sign language and stuff.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's a more fun fact.
Yeah.
What's for lunch?
I mean, maybe she's hungry.
Maybe she is. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is for you. Welcome to the GeekVerse podcast. Oh man, I did the intro last week episode. I didn't know what it was last week, so once again, I don't know what episode it is. Yikes. Roughly 170. Maybe we're breaking 180. Roughly in that ballpark.
I'm gonna say 179.
Really? Okay. Welcome to episode 179. It works for me. It's all the same. This is our A Quiet Place review.
Indeed.
A little quaint today, just me and El Brago here, because we were going to record last night with Taylor, but it was late. It's a long story, but I am the silent Dylan Musk, joined by...
Oh God, I don't know. I'm the yelling Tyler Briggs.
The yelling.
Yeah.
I might do that. I might do the John Krasinski yell at some point.
I feel like you have to.
But
you've got a really good one.
It might destroy the speakers.
Yeah.
I know. It also has to be unexpected, so I'll do it when you're in the middle of explaining some really important point and kind of ruin it. So A Quiet Place, we saw this a couple nights ago. As a quick non-spoiler, what did you think of this movie, Tyler?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was... it kind of did what it meant to do. It was more of a thriller than a horror, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't think... there's definitely some suspense and stuff around the creatures, but as the movie goes on, it gets to be much more just you're biting your nails, your feet are up, you're glued to the screen. You're not scared to look away, or you're like, oh no, what's going to happen? But it's how are things going to go down?
Right.
So it's much more thrilling than scary, but I think it was... I thought that was great. I really liked it about it. They did some really cool stuff, a lot of really nice shots, and I think overall the acting for being something that with minimal dialogue was really, really well done. By no means was it on par with some other things, such as Logan, for example.
Right.
Because that was just phenomenal.
In terms of a silent
in terms of silent performances. But,
or even something like Shape of Water last year that you really used subtitles in an interesting way.
Yeah. But I thought it was still for an entire cast having to be silent for most of the film, I thought they did it really well. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I have there's nothing that really stuck out to me as being bad. It's just, for me, maybe there's some things could have been done a little bit better, but overall, I thought it was a really good film, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah, as for myself, when we talked about this trailer when it first dropped, a few months ago on the cast, and I thought it looked cool enough, the hook of it, just that these monsters are based off sound and how they were kind of going to play with that idea throughout the movie. But I didn't know if I was going to go see it in theaters because it looked decent enough and I wanted to see John Krasinski, but I wasn't sold yet. But what really made me get to the theater was that when I saw that John Krasinski was also directing it. And so from that perspective, I really just wanted to see, I think this is his first movie that he's directed. Maybe he's directed some episodes of TV shows here or there, or something smaller, but this is probably the biggest thing he's directed. So I definitely wanted to go check it out for that purpose. And yeah, I really enjoyed it well. I think it is certainly a different movie, obviously with how quiet it is, and that's kind of based around everything. That's what the whole movie's based around. And I think that was really well done. Characters and the acting is still good, even though there's no lines to really work with. One of the kid actors, the son, maybe not the best actor. He's very just a little way too expressive for as realistic or something. But other than that, Emily Blunt, for example, I've seen her in a couple things, but I don't think I've ever seen a movie where she's like the star, so I don't really know a whole lot about her. Yeah. And yeah, she was amazing through this movie. She has to do some really strange scenes, and she definitely nailed them perfectly.
Yeah.
Cinematography as well, like really beautiful, like really nice colors and like slow pans of shots and stuff like that. And I mean, obviously there's, like beasts or creatures in the movie and that's CGI, but everything else, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of sets. Really, it's a pretty, contained film, but it's all like practical effects and it just looks, really beautiful and realistic. It's a fun story. It definitely had a couple things that I wasn't expecting in terms of like, I don't know, not really twists, I guess, but just little things I wasn't expecting. But overall, it was fun from start to finish, and it was very like just made me very anxious like the whole time. Like it wasn't really that scary at any point, but the uncertainty that the movie kind of sets up early on really kept me interested the whole time. I didn't really know what was going to happen, and it was fun. I think. I mean, my only con is that I maybe wanted to see like a bit more, from like, without getting into spoilers. I'm going to leave it at that. But there's some things that I kind of wanted to get a little bit more depth on or see more of. So we'll talk about that. But as for a recommendation, I don't know. I think I would recommend it generally. I think it was a fun movie. I didn't really have like any problems with it. It's not like it didn't really blow me away either. I don't know. Probably won't be in my top 5 for like movies of the year or whatever. But it was still like a fun movie, and I'll definitely rewatch it at some point. So I'd recommend it. I don't think you need to see it in theaters necessarily. Yeah. But I don't know if you were like on the fence about it, and I don't know. I would recommend it. It's a fun movie.
It is a good one.
So let's hop right into it. Where do we want to start? I think one thing I want to mention, obviously spoiler territory now. You're not safe if you still want to see the movie. Go watch it before listening to the rest of this. But so obviously this movie takes place in like a post-apocalyptic sort of world where these sort of zombie creatures, whatever, have kind of taken over and killed a lot of people, and in really not that much time. I guess through the movie there's a few pans, like it's the first time we see them is day 89. And then I think the next skip is like 200, and then after that it's like 400, and that's where the rest of the movie takes place. Yeah. I could be wrong on that. But either way, it's like within a year or two kind of since the breakout or whatever it is. And so on day 89 we kind of get like introduced to the family and the story, and they're just kind of cruising through like this abandoned or destroyed town and picking out useful supplies and stuff like that. And so there's 5 of them. There's the mom, dad, the son, daughter, and then like an even younger son as well. Yeah. And so in the trailers there's like a scene of this kid playing with the little like toy airplane. Yeah. And obviously like makes a noise, and then like in the trailer kind of cuts there, so you don't really know exactly what's going to happen. But I remember we were talking about that on the cast when we were talking about the trailer, and we're like, man, how stupid are they to let that kid have that plane? Like, that's such a bad idea. And the movie obviously kind of explains that like they did take it away from him, but then like the daughter, she gave it back to him and gave him the batteries and whatnot.
Well, he actually took the batteries himself.
Right. She just gave him the batteries. Yeah. And then he picked up the batteries. So there is kind of an explanation of that, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because that kid just like after he makes that sound with the airplane, the beast comes out and it just fucking destroys him. He just gets killed. He's dead right then. And I love that. Like honestly, in terms of like going to movies and like being really expressive, I try to contain myself to not ruin other people's experience. But that actually like knocked me out of my seat. Like I was jolted back because I did not expect that whatsoever. And I loved it because it set a precedent for the rest of this movie that you don't know who's going to live. Like no one.
They'll just kill it off.
Like the ending of this movie could be that everyone dies and there is no happy ending. Mm-hmm. And so I love that was just the start of the movie, and then it also obviously starts off your characters really well because it kind of establishes connections between I mean, at the start of the movie, you don't know if all of them are family necessarily. Yeah. Like maybe they just found this kid who was alone and they're bringing them with them. But I mean, they are all a family, and it kind of sets that dynamic. Obviously, there's like a father-daughter thing where the daughter feels it's her fault that the kid got killed, and then maybe her father is like mad at her for that or something like that. And so like that kind of thing, like there are a lot of dynamics between the family members is set up like at the very beginning.
It introduces like a good kind of tension that they can play around with the family, whereas obviously the father probably blames himself for not being able to protect his son for whatever reason, but then the daughter also blames herself and thinks that the father hates her, and then the other son just like, I imagine that just scarred him, and he's obviously really scared to leave the farm throughout the film.
Yeah.
And he kind of has that to deal with, and then the mother's just kind of like trying to be that kind of supporting figure and keep it all together, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because that's such a big part of the film, is because for most of it until, obviously we're in spoilers now, so until the wife starts giving birth.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, that's what kind of causes all the problems. But to kind of keep things interesting until then, it keeps, it gives the movie something to play with the characters, at least. Give them more depth.
And that's something, important to do if you're not going to have conversations, right?
Yeah.
If you have, a silent cast, like in the early opening scene, you get a couple like subtitled sign language, scenes, but like even those are very minimal. Like they don't ever have like a conversation. It's usually just one character like sharing some basic information, and a lot of the finger over the lip, be quiet. It's like that. I think they know this, but it's still whatever. I
love how whenever with John Krasinski with his beard, he never like did it like straight up and down. He always just like slammed it into his beard and like had it at a slight angle.
It's like it gets blocked by his nose. Like he just can't push it past his nose. Yeah, he definitely put a lot of work in the mirror before the sets, before they were recording, just like practicing where he was gonna line up his finger. That kind of reminded me, like, I think one thing that kind of surprised me with the movie is that, maybe not surprised, but was interesting, was there really isn't a huge focus on realism. Like, I don't think these characters really were meant to be super realistic, or the situation was meant to be like, okay, what would people do in this situation? There's obviously elements of that, but I feel like it was maybe a little over the top sometimes in terms of, like, I don't know, I guess just its realism, and I don't know, that worked for me because I look at this movie and like what it was trying to do, or what it was like, what its purpose is, and obviously it's supposed to be really suspenseful and like thrilling, and in that it succeeded greatly. The story isn't really I don't know, it's nothing like too outstanding, I guess, but and maybe that is because it doesn't have like a big basis on realism. I think the realism comes into like what are like the character decisions and what they're doing, and you look at this world, like, why would you have a child in this environment? Yeah. Like, why would they get pregnant in the first place? Obviously, accidents happen and whatnot, but you would think that is something of, like, utmost importance, because, a kid can just scream wildly. They cannot understand that being quiet is going to get them all killed. So, I don't know, I think while those decisions maybe don't make sense for, like, a realistic character, it's still, like, fine for the sake of the movie. Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, that's something that from the trailers too, like, we knew that was coming, that she was pregnant, and they kind of show it throughout the movie, but I
don't know, it's one thing that stood out to me is, for the realism wise as well, was the fact that they just had power, where like I imagine if the world's gone to shit by then, power grids would be not down. And then if they had like a generator or something running, that obviously makes a lot of noise. So they never really explained that. But again, for the sake of the movie, I don't think it took away from it at all. And at no point did it really try and be realistic to the point where that kind of stands out. It's just kind of, that's how things were. They just happen to have power and stuff. So for me, like, when movies are like very unrealistic like that, sometimes, like, for me at least, I notice that stuff a lot. But I definitely noticed it, but I was like, whatever. Like,
because in this movie, it was kind of just like sprinkled like smaller things here and there that kind of make you question, but it was nothing that, like, I don't know, massively took you out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about this briefly, but yeah, obviously it starts on day 89, and we get like a quick scene of that, and that's kind of like the intro of the movie, right? And then it skips to like, I can't
sometime in between.
I want to say like 200 and something.
I think so, like it zips in between kind of like the main scene kind of focus area
Right.
and then the start. So there's like some spot in the middle where that's the one where they're playing Monopoly, right? Or is that in the kind of main sequence?
Geez, yeah. Because by the time the second segment happens of day 200, aren't they already at? They're already at their like farm and they're already living there, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to remember exactly, but I don't know. What did you think of that? That they kind of, I mean, the first is obviously day 89, so it's 89 days past where pretty much everyone's dead already, or at least we kind of only have like a very small perspective of what the world is like. Obviously, there's a little glimpse because John Krasinski's character is on the radio and he's like, dialing SOS signals to. He has like a long list of places all over the world and he's kind of crossing them off one by one. So obviously that doesn't really give us a full picture, but it kind of establishes that it's like a worldwide thing that people are, dying all over the place. But we never get any sort of like origin of where these things are coming from or how they came about, whether it was some science experiment or some alien thing. And I don't know. What did you think of that choice?
I thought, what they did was pretty good because he obviously had that one wall in his little basement there with all the newspapers and then the whiteboard where he wrote like weaknesses and stuff. And in the newspapers, as it kind of like panned through them, you could kind of get little tidbits of information. And it actually showed that there was one of the ones was talking about a meteor that landed, I think it was New Mexico.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
And then I noticed it said there was a meteor, and then there was talking about like angels of death and stuff. And so I assume they're just extraterrestrials of some sort that came from the meteor, and then they just kind of spread from that location. I don't know. Maybe there could have been multiple impacts across the world, but. Yeah, I assume it's something from outer space that just kind of came down and just started killing everyone, and it showed kind of like.
I didn't notice that newspaper in the movie, but it's funny because I didn't really have a problem with them kind of skipping that aspect of it because I feel like I don't know, a lot of movies have done that before, and I don't know, we didn't necessarily need it to make this like a better story because once again that opening segment really like already establishes like what these things are and. At least for like the sake of this movie, the purpose of intrigue, why they're interesting, and it already establishes that. But I did want to see. That's what I was talking about in my non-spoiler. Like what I wanted to see, I would have liked to see a few scenes, maybe 2 or 3 more of like an earlier segment of the movie, like before they were on the farm. Just because, I mean, while that set is beautiful and I love that. You were mentioning that they bought like a bunch of corn and got farmers to like plant all of these corn mazes, so it's all like legitimate, as opposed to just having like a small part and then like green screen or whatever. Yeah. And I really like that, and the set is cool. It's very beautiful, the farm. But I kind of wanted to see more of like the travel sequence, or like maybe them early on, or maybe even like when there was more people around. I don't know.
The one thing about the travel sequence, I think they were always at the farm. Because you could see at the...
And they just went out to get supplies.
Yeah, I think they were just doing a supply run as a family. Okay. Because, I'm not sure. Maybe they do that like once a year to do like a full family supply run. Because you see later on...
because you see in that I can't remember if it is... I think it is the son that is alive throughout like the rest of the movie. He has like some weird cough or something going on. Like he needs some prescription medication for... I don't know what illness he has.
Yeah. So, but I mean, at the end of the opening sequence, you see them going across that bridge towards the farm.
Right.
So I think and they already had like the sand trail. Right. So I assume that the farm was just their house where they lived, and then they kind of, as things went to shit, they kind of prepared it better and kind of got everything set up to stay alive and be quiet. So that's what I kind of took from that. Right. But yeah, I think it would have been nice to... see a bit more, maybe.
I just because I was enjoying it so much, and I don't really know. I don't know how long was it? Hour and a half, 2 hours?
I think just under 2 hours.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it would have been cool if they touched on maybe like day like 20 and like a short like 5-minute thing, and then it goes to like and like them kind of like hearing about everything going down. But you don't really necessarily have to show a lot of the monsters killing people. You just kind of see it from like a third party's kind of view, and then it goes to like day 60 or something where everything's kind of done and they're kind of doing they have their routine down, and then it goes to day 89. And then it's like, holy shit, gets killed.
Yeah.
And then you have like maybe like one or two more pauses as they're kind of trying to deal with it.
Yeah,
and then it gets to like the main sequence.
I wonder how I would have because I really did enjoy the opening segment that the movie did have, and I already commented on what it kind of establishes. I wonder like if they wanted to touch on it earlier days, if they'd say, I don't know if I'd want flashbacks. I'm picturing like I Am Legend, and you've seen I Am Legend, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you know how they kind of go back to like the origin stuff like later in the movie, and like it's kind of through like flashbacks that happen. And I mean I don't really want to see a carbon. I love I Am Legend, but I don't want like a carbon copy of that. I want something different. But I just because that really would have changed like the whole pacing of the movie. I feel like
I think,
and that would have been harder once again to really make it like that silent movie, because I think if you go back to like day 20 or something, like people might not necessarily know, and you'll probably have a lot. You just have a lot more people in general. Whereas this movie only has 6 people in the cast, which is I can't think of the last time I saw a movie in theaters that had that little amount of people. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, that is a good point you bring up. I think they could have done it because obviously them living on a farm and whatnot, they're fairly isolated from the rest of society there. So I think it could have been them kind of hearing something on the radio or whatnot. But then again, that then adds significantly more dialogue to the film, which I think a big part of what makes this film so special is the lack of dialogue.
Right. That's
even if it's just dialogue or the radio, I do think having that.
That's probably like the first like fragment of an idea the writers had, you know, before they made it made like monsters and stuff like that. They probably just wanted to make like a silent movie and think about a way to tell it. One thing I wanted to mention actually is, so the farm, obviously there's a scene where John Krasinski's up on the roof of the silo, something like that, and he makes it like a bonfire, and then it kind of pans around and we see that there's, I think it was like 5 or 6 other bonfires of people, and I guess they do that every night or every few days or something, just to kind of say, hey, we're here, or we're still alive. And I like that, and it actually gave me it reminded me of Lord of the Rings. They do like the Rohan, 100%. They light that fire, or I can't remember where they do it exactly, but then it's like that just way of communication across the land. And between them walking around in their bare feet all the time, and it kind of reminded me of like the Shire, a little bit, and the Hobbits, and so I did get some Lord of the Rings vibes from this movie as well, from those two aspects. And
that was really cool.
That's always a thumbs up, from me.
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings being my favorite movies.
I really like that. I initially thought that when he was sitting up there, and then he's looking at obviously the kids' stuff that he kind of has, like memorial stuff. I thought he just threw all that in the fire and started burning. I was like, oh, yikes. But turns out he was not doing that. So, yeah.
Where should we jump to?
I think one thing I want to make sure we do is actually kind of go through the whole plot, because when we did the Murder on the Orient Express, I remember Travis told us we didn't actually run through the entire plot.
It was more a review for people who have seen the movie.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, obviously we start with the opening sequence. They're doing their loot run, kind of trying to get all the medications and whatnot, and then the kid dies because of the I actually really liked that scene a lot. I thought that was one of the standout ones for me. Just where the kids just kind of it starts off with from the girl's point of view, the young girl's point of view. The
daughter,
Yeah, and it shows they're all just kind of walking, and then she's just,
and when it cuts to her, the sound cuts out completely.
Exactly.
Because
she's in the film, she's heard, and in real life,
life,
she's deaf. So I thought that was a really cool scene, how it showed her kind of facing forward, and then all of a sudden you see John Krasinski and them turn around, and then it shows a scene of her from the front, and behind her the little kid's just playing with a toy, and you still don't hear, but you see all the lights going off. Right. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah. And they do that later in the movie too with her character. They play with that scene a couple times, another later in the movie when the son is lost somewhere in the cornfield at night, and she's looking for him. She sees his light, and behind her is the beast kind of cruising around, and she obviously has no idea.
Yeah. That's I thought everything they did when they had those silent moments with her was really good. But and then John Krasinski, I thought like he acted that scene really well, like, just with his facial expressions and running to the kid.
Yeah.
And then the fucking monster just like blurring through the forest and just fucking it jumps across and just like with all of its body just swings its arm and just
it goes in. I was so taken aback. Like it really is like such a beautiful intro.
It's so brutal and
it is.
But yeah, so we've got that whole scene.
Yeah.
And then it cuts forward to sometime in between, probably
another 100 days later ish. So. Yeah.
They're doing. This is the one where he's at like the radio doing the SOS thing, right?
I believe that was one of the first scenes.
So you've kind of you see like a bit of their setup. John Krasinski is trying to.
They're kind of just doing like their
own thing.
It kind of just shows like their routine.
Where,
right?
They did like the little dance. You see Emily Blunt with the earphones, and
that was probably was that the same scene?
I think that was after the first cut where she comes down and they do their little dance.
No. I don't think that was till later because I think she was like pretty like quite pregnant at that point when she went down there and they danced.
I don't remember that. I thought she was less pregnant, and then after. You see that she's like really obviously pregnant.
Maybe. Yeah, you might be right.
Could be either way.
And then they also I think it was one of those earlier scenes that they're kind of doing their test and the kids are like just gluing like newspapers or whatever to the wall to like a basement wall just to like suppress the sound. And at first like it's not really that jarring because it's like, well, it makes sense that they're trying to suppress the sound, but obviously the purpose for that is for when the baby comes. And it's cool that because they actually do that a couple times. I know I'm going off track, going out of order, but there's another scene where Emily Blunt is just like, I don't know, toying around with some stuff, and she takes out like this little like breathing mask, and like that. It's just a very quick little shot, right? Yeah. But it's just like those two things are foreshadowing that they are or have prepared for when the baby comes. So that obviously as a viewer, it's like, why are they having a baby in this situation? This is the worst. First of all, you don't want to bring a kid up in this world. That's awful. Yeah. But it shows that they at least are thinking about like how to solve that problem of the baby is going to cry and get them all.
Yeah, they have like a little soundproof crib and everything, so that's really cool. But yeah, so you have kind of like a couple sort of in between sets of them just kind of doing their thing, and then it eventually gets. And
that stuff's a lot of fun to see, and I think obviously the daughter actress, since she is actually deaf, like it really. I didn't know that when I saw the movie, but obviously she plays it really well. And then also because John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are married, like it's cool. Like they're married in real life and in this movie. It really, I don't know, like the chemistry between all these people, even though it's not their actual kids, it's still like is. I don't know. There's a lot of chemistry between them all, and
it works out really nicely.
It's very wholesome experience.
Yeah, definitely. And then we cut forward to eventually to our present day. Yeah, I guess you could say day 400.
Yeah, where the rest of the events take place. Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically they're doing their thing. John has to take his son out on a trip to kind of show him. He's trying to basically show him how to
teach him the ropes.
Yeah, exactly. So that eventually when he gets older, if he dies, the son can kind of take over that role and do all that stuff himself. And then you kind of see the daughter kind of going through her internal struggles with
validation.
Yeah, exactly. She thinks that her father hates her and nothing. Like he's obviously trying to get an earpiece for her that actually works, and that's always not working. So you see a lot of frustration on her part, and she eventually goes off into the woods to kind of chill with the grave that they had.
Right, kind of like a little running away from home thing.
Exactly, and it kind of builds up her character, and like you see that she's not really scared of the creatures. Yeah, and that I don't know. She seems to almost given up on trying to stay alive, and it's just kind of.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, because we also see that John Krasinski he's kind of, I guess, giving her a bunch of like ear hearing aids, essentially, and I guess he's trying to like perfect it to get one to actually work because none of them have worked for her so far. And so was it before or after that scene when he gives her one and she just like completely rejects it and said, like keeps like telling him to stop, and she, it's never going to work, like stop trying to make it work. And that once again is kind of like the tension between those two characters, right? Because they're kind of at ends a little bit, or she.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be tricky to just be with your family 100% of the time. There's.
Yeah.
You have friends and stuff, but you can't really communicate with them, or you are so limited in what you can actually do and everything. Yeah. You live your life on eggshells, like walking on eggshells. That's no fun.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's like, I just imagine how you can't really express yourself except through your actions, because when they're talking, they're not just going to sit there and have a whole conversation using just sign language, because obviously the constant urgency of the situation, they always have to be trying to be productive, so they can't. It's tough for them to kind of sit down and have a conversation on top of.
Yeah, you can't really ever relax.
Yeah,
especially like from, any of their perspectives, but even as the parents, you have to constantly be watching out for the kids and make sure they're not doing something silly. And they knock over that lamp and it makes a little explosion. And they're playing Monopoly. Like, there's threats everywhere.
Yeah, any misstep could just be death, pretty much.
Any misstep. Yeah, so that scene where he takes his son out, and they go, and I like this a lot. They show that John Krasinski set up some a bunch of fish traps in the river to as another source of food, and also that he kind of teaches his son that if there's other noise around, something like constant, like obviously like a river flowing, that they can actually like talk, and as long as there's something louder around, then they are okay. And then they go up to the top of the river, the waterfall, and they do a little they just yell it out. And the kid obviously is very nervous like the whole time, and even when they're just getting the fish, like he's like just wants to go home. He obviously didn't want to go out in the first place. He just wanted to stay where it's safe at the farm. And that was fun to see. I mean, like I said, that kid actor, he's no Stranger Things kid. He's no It kid, but he's trying his best.
Yeah.
I guess. So
I thought he did good enough. Like, it wasn't. I had no problems with his performance.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like I really enjoyed that scene because it kind of drove home that like they're kids still. Like, because sometimes you see these post-apocalyptic settings and you have like The Walking Dead or something, and the kids are all like super hardened.
They're badass.
Yeah. They know what to do. They fucking killed zombies and shit. And it kind of shows that like they're literally only a year and a half into this situation. Yeah, they're still kids, and like for us, obviously, I imagine we would think of that. Yeah, like it makes sense that these noises kind of would drown out the noise we make. But as a kid, you don't really think about that. Like, you just think any noise that you make is gonna attract them, no matter.
Especially after seeing your brother get killed for a tiny little noise that was a toy airplane.
Yeah. Right? So it was a really grounding in a way, and I thought it was really cool. I really like that scene in general, and then I liked a lot what the sequence after that, running into the old man in the woods.
Right.
I thought that was a cool sequence. I initially
unexpected. Again, I kind of was thinking after the first half an hour or whatever that there probably would be no one else in this movie. It'd just be these people, and so seeing another person, even though it was very brief and there's really not a whole lot to it, it's still cool to see.
I definitely didn't expect that scene to go how it did either, because you see like it's the shot of the kid, and then you see the blurred man just kind of like all of a sudden move and stand up. Yeah, that they obviously didn't notice before, and then obviously, and he's a lot of that scene's from
the look on his face, too. Like he's clearly freaking out about something, and then it kind of pans, and you see presumably his wife who's just got killed, and he's on the ground. And he doesn't want to do it alone.
You see the classic John Krasinski just like slams it in there,
throws that don't make any noise,
and then that was a really cool scene. And then that was the first one where you actually get like a decent shot of the creatures too,
right? Because that first time it's not like shrouded in the
crazy
bushes.
Blurry,
or like a quick. Split second shot,
Whereas that one, you actually kind of see it jump on him and kind of like go on top of his body a little bit. You didn't see a lot, but you kind of
it's not really that gory. Like you kind of really at any point, like the kills are very quick and they don't linger on them, and there's not like a camera directly on someone's head that gets cut off or something. Yeah, and even like the old man when he sees his wife dead, and he just screams out because he doesn't want to go on. Like, you don't really see, like, you do get to see the creature briefly, but it's kind of off screen. You're kind of seeing the dad and his son's reaction to the situation more so than actually what that beast is doing, destroying that guy's body. So, I like that scene as well, and it was unexpected. I like, at first the kid is like really scared when they're just walking up and he sees like this house. Yeah, it's kind of like a creepy old haunted looking house, and he's already freaking out. He's very neurotic, that one. He's kind of just scared of his own shadow.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that scene did a good job of really making you feel less safe. Because you could definitely get a little bit comfortable with seeing them like yelling by the waterfall and stuff. And you kind of get like, okay, like things are okay, they can figure it out, and then bam, once again, like anything, like even something completely out of their control. Some guy could literally just run up to their farm and start yelling, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it really adds to that the tension again. It kind of brings it back, which was nice.
And then while that's happening, we kind of have some shots going back and forth. So Emily Blunt's character, the mother, she is doing some laundry downstairs or something, and as she's bringing it back upstairs, it gets like caught on the step, and she's kind of like struggling with it. She eventually gets it and makes it back upstairs, but in the process of that, it sprung up a nail that is conveniently placed on one of the... I quickly want to touch on this. So obviously throughout the house... they have wood floors, and they kind of painted like which ones are safe to step on. Saying like which ones will screech and which ones won't. And I really like that detail, and I love that one of the things that the dad character is doing is just like filling up with sand and just making pathways so that they can walk without making noise. And I liked those little things that they kind of just established.
There were a lot of little details that really added that much more to the film that you didn't necessarily need to do, but
and it's just through like nice camera angles and like pan shots of like the houses and like where they are, and you kind of just figure it out, right? And it's once again without characters like explaining things, it's just through the directing of it, through these beautiful shots, plus the backgrounds are so beautiful as well. It's just like fun to watch and see. Anyway, so she springs up a nail that is placed on one of those like paint stepping pads, safe spot to step on. And so I guess once the dad and the son go off, they really don't get back until like the climax of the movie, like the end of the action. It's interesting because it seems like they kind of leave and they're gone for like, well, they're only gone for like a day, but that's still like for the sake of the movie and the movie's timeline, like it happens like probably midway through the movie, and then it kind of culminates when they get back. And so I guess like seeing the trailers, I have a pretty good ability, maybe it's a bad ability, to kind of forget what I have seen in a trailer, but obviously I knew that the pregnancy scene was coming in when she was going to have the baby. I mean, it's the cover, I believe it's like the cover poster of the movie, so that scene's coming at some point, and that is kind of like there's more that happens after the birth, and that's what I like. There is still like probably another half an hour after that happens. But it kind of culminates that they get back as soon as they're getting back late at night. And so at some point the mother is going back downstairs and she steps on the nail and does a pretty good job of remaining
she
pretty
herself
quiet.
Didn't make any sound, but she dropped like a photograph, or like a framed photo or something, which in turn
smashed and made a noise. And that's one of the scenes stand out of Emily Blunt's like performance and like the treachery that she can just display with like her facial reactions, and
I think that whole
I really like to see it
from that moment up until her actually giving birth in the tub. I thought that whole sequence there was really well done.
So what is it? Why does she goes back downstairs to activate the light, the red light, which is like the warning light, right?
She
or does I'm trying to remember why she was going back downstairs and why she stepped on the nail again.
I think she went back down...
Because was there a noise or something that got made and that's why she wanted to go back downstairs?
No, I think she went down... I initially thought she went downstairs because that's where they originally planned for her to give birth.
Oh, okay.
And then obviously they had it kind of soundproofed and whatnot. So she was just going to give birth down
there. That was
like
a different... That was a different... Like, because they had like a cellar... That's where the baby was born, like with that trap door kind of in the main room.
Yeah.
But then they also had the basement.
Okay.
So those might have actually been those were in different buildings, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No. You're right. You're right. In that case, I think the idea then would have been. I think the lights then was that she was going to go turn the lights on.
Oh, right, because she, like, her water broke, and so the baby was coming. That's why she went downstairs to activate the light.
Yeah.
And that's when she steps on the nail that she sprung up earlier.
Yeah.
And then that's when, like, I mean, I was already very anxious and stressed out in this movie, but that's when it, like, hampered up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was going to happen.
And they had a really good shot of, because she steps on the nail, and then she's, like, sitting there waiting, listening for a second. Just like, holy shit, like, did anything hear that?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, there was, like, a brief pause, and then she slowly like takes her foot off the nail. That's like the shot of that scene too.
Very cringe, very cringy.
And then she hits the light, and then you think like, okay, like maybe there wasn't none of the creatures were close enough to kind of hear that, right? Mm-hmm. And then right as like she's like going back up to go up the stairs, it just shows like it's like the back end of its feet just like moving across the doorway, and just like shit. Like,
and then she goes and hides, and it kind of sneaks down there.
They did a good job of kind of like, they built up the tension, and then they kind of let you think it's going down, and then just bring it up to like a whole nother level. Yeah. And, oh man, that's crazy. Again,
because at this point, remember, she's alone because the daughter went off, she ran away.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, she can't hear anything. I mean, I guess they didn't make any noise that she would have heard anyway at that point. Yeah. But she's just chilling off on the bridge again, and the father and son still haven't arrived home.
Yeah, they're kind of making their way back.
They probably arrive like... Well, I guess, so after she kind of does... She sets like a timer. It's like a 2-minute timer or something. And that one scene, why I really liked that is because, obviously, as that timer is like tickling down from like a minute or whatever, it obviously has like little tiny ticks that are barely audible, but it kind of goes to the creature's perspective, and you can hear that those are like really loud sounds, like even just that tiny tick. And then when the big alarm goes off, it's like an even bigger sound. So it's cool. It's cool that it kind of switches from perspectives throughout this movie, right? And there's really only... That might be the only time that you actually get maybe one, or maybe kind of at the end of the movie you could also say this happens as well, where you kind of get the creature's perspective or what it's like from them. I think it's
that's like the only...
But it's just perspective like from the audio sense, right? Because obviously they don't see anything, and even when it is the perspective of the deaf daughter, it's not like from like a first person viewer. Right? It's just like what it sounds like for them, and that's obviously, like, once again, consistent throughout the movie is this focus on, like, the sound and how quiet it is. And obviously, Emily Blunt, she walks downstairs with, like, her headphones on at one point, and then, like, you can't hear it as the viewer, but then she puts it in her husband's ear, and that's when... It's just cool how they play with perspectives like that, right?
That part actually, like... got me a little bit tense too, because I was like, that music's really loud.
It's so loud. Because like, the first like half an hour or 40 minutes of this movie is like completely
there's no
silent.
Soundtrack or anything. Maybe there is a little bit, but
there is some intensity stuff near
like,
the end, I
think. Like the start of the film.
The start of the film
is just completely silent, pretty much.
Yeah, I think it, like, honestly, that's like the loudest point in the movie up to that point is when she puts that headphone on. Or
it's like, that's spooky.
Yeah. And it kind of reminded me as a viewer, like, wow, I haven't noticed that it feels weird that I can't hear anything, because the rest of the movie is, consistent with that theme, and it kind of works. Okay, so after...
So she sets a little timer, the alarm goes off, distracts the creature, and then it
goes wild, and just like smashing shit.
And then she kind of makes her way up the stairs, and then across the cornfield, actually, to the other house.
Across the cornfield?
Well, not across the cornfield, but she went down the path, and then she gets into the other house, but then one of the creatures follows her there. And then she pretty much goes upstairs to get into the bathtub, to basically where she's going to give birth. And then at this point, you see John Krasinski and his son get back, and then they kind of walk up the ridge, and then they see the red lights. So then he gets his son to set off some fireworks, pretty much to make a loud enough noise to distract the creatures. Yeah,
and that's kind of a big moment for the son, because up to this point, like, he's never really... I don't get the feeling that he's ever done anything like by himself.
Yeah,
he's always had his sister around or one of his parents. With any task. If it was like outside the house, probably. So obviously he's like scared and he doesn't want to do that, but he does anyway. And it's cool because we see actually a scene earlier in the movie of the mother and son, and they're having a conversation, and she's like, one day you're going to have to, take care of me, and I don't know, whatever else. It's through like sign language and stuff. I can't remember exactly what she says. But yeah, they kind of set up that he's going to have to kind of save her at some point or do something to help her out.
It builds the bond between that, like those two are really close. And that kind of adds to his motivation to actually being able to do it on his own. Yeah. Which is really nice.
Yeah.
So they set off the fireworks. Emily Blunt just lets off a wild scream. Yeah. But the creatures are drawn away, and then eventually, and then after that, what happens? John goes to his wife and finds her.
Yeah.
And then the kid
scoops up a shotgun.
Yeah, and then you kind of see the son kind of trying, like, casually making his way back to the house because he's like, oh yeah, like I did it, I'm safe. And then you hear the rustling in the cornfields, and then all of a sudden, I think that's kind of when it kind of hit home for him. That's like, shit, like I'm actually alone out here. Yeah. And there's no big noises to kind of like keep them away from me. So you get that moment of him like panicking, and then the daughter kind of finding him. And then it kind of has the first kind of foreshadowing as to the creature's weakness, where she has her new
hearing aid,
and when it's turned on, and the way the creatures hear, I guess the frequencies they pick up, that kind of the frequencies that the resound. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but the frequencies that the ear. The hearing aid makes, I guess, to amplify the sound for the daughter.
And it's not working as a hearing aid. It still is just like making that really off-putting staticky noise.
Yeah. But I guess the way the frequencies it puts out and how it amplifies them, obviously the creatures, it just like completely fucks with them. Yeah. So
the way I took it is that static is like their nail on the chalkboard times like 1,000, because they're all based off of sound. Right? Yeah.
So then you kind of see you see that there's it hints at them having a weakness, basically. And so that
and that's because at the start of the movie, or early on in the movie, we go down into the father's like lair, and he has a highlighted thing on a whiteboard of weaknesses, and there's nothing under it. Like he has no idea. He doesn't know what it is. Yeah. So really, like, we don't get that answer until like quite a bit later.
Mm-hmm. So then you kind of have their moment of going up on top of the silo and figuring out, and you kind of get that moment of them kind of like, you see the daughter thinking like, oh, like,
so the daughter and the son, they connect. Yeah, they find each other, and that's a pretty suspenseful scene as well, because the boy is like running away from a creature. He made some accidental noise, or I think there was a noise in the house, and so a creature was running back. So it wasn't going for him necessarily, but it was going to go past him. So he just like booked it off into the cornfield. Yeah. And obviously that makes a lot of noise. And he knocks himself out on a tractor. But so his light's on the ground. The daughter's kind of cruising up, and she sees the light and goes and finds him. And then they are trying to reconnect with the father, and they can't find him. So that's why they go up onto the silo and light a bonfire in order for him to find them. So I guess at that point, what's happening with the other two? They're
getting the Emily Blunt set up in the little nursery soundproof.
Right. He goes and finds her in the bathroom, picks her up, and takes her down there. And then he goes off and
to help the kids, missing the fact that the water's leaking through. And
so that was a weird scene, because when he like leaves that trap door, and there's very clearly some water like pipe that broke because one of the creatures slashed it. Yeah. And it's like, we can hear it as the viewer, and you would think in a world that is so quiet that you would hear that, but you would also, like, it looked like he could have seen it, but he doesn't, and he keeps going. So that was something that kind of bugged all of us.
I feel
like there could have just been like they could have just shot that better,
I think the way the camera panned, it made it look like it was like a direct view from where he was to where the water is, but I think there might have been a wall in the way that, or something that we didn't really see.
Yeah, something in the way.
Yeah, so, and then also, I mean, he's got to have some mad tunnel vision going on right now, like how intense the situation is.
That's true.
I think that was probably like the one common like horror trope where it's like something
that was the one thing of all the things that felt unrealistic throughout this movie. That was the only one that kind of bothered me. Everything else I was fine with and kind of just passed over.
And now that I think about it, the one thing about that too is that they didn't really need to have that to force the Emily out of the basement with her child, because the creature ended up going into the basement anyways. And I feel like that probably would have happened whether the water was there or not.
That's true. I guess the reason they want to do that is so they could have the scene of the creature sliding, dipping into the water, which was really funny the way he moved into the water. But then that's the suspense of like where is it?
Yeah,
it's in this room, and if this baby over here makes any noise, it is dead. Yeah, and then I am dead, and then we're all dead.
Yeah, so that was a wild scene.
That was.
Yeah,
it was pretty. It was well shot, because there's also the suspense too. Like, she is getting off the bed. She's obviously incredibly tired. She just had a child, and so she's like stepping into the water slowly, and yeah, it's kind of just you know, obviously the suspense never really stops in this movie. Like, you don't really ever get like a relief, and until like I guess cut to black at the end of the movie. But even then, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not.
But I think it was paced incredibly well though. Like, it wasn't so much that you just get burnt out and you stop caring.
That's where I feel like there could have been some more scenes, because I didn't feel at any point like it dragged on or that I was bored, and I generally just kind of wanted to see like, you know, some more. Yeah, not that there was any problems with it.
I think it was paced really well for how intense they kept that last, like the whole sequence, basically from the nail pretty much until the end of the film. Yeah. It was pretty much just like non-stop, but they had little breaks in it, just enough to let you relax a little bit and stop you from getting burnt out, to keep you kind of on the edge of your seat. Yeah, which was great.
Yeah, really good pacing.
So from there, the kids make some noise on the silo. They fall inside the silo pretty much, because
that's a pretty intense scene.
Yeah, that one scared me. Like,
it's kind of like I felt like very drowning in corn. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about it as we were watching, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a scene that looked like this. You know, like I can't really picture one. And it was fun to see, because like one of the doors falls off, and that's kind of what they're using as like the equivalent of like a lifeboat in this you know, ocean of corn kernels.
The daughter pushes like the door. She jumps down, pushes the door to the sun, and then she can't reach it anymore.
Plus, that door almost just like decapitates the kid as it's going down.
And then there's all the noise, and the creature like jumps in through the top.
Yeah. Oh. And then they use the lifeboat as like a quick shield. Yeah, like that whole scene was just visually like it was fun to see. But also, you know, it is suspenseful, because it's like, okay, how are they going to get out of this situation, and how are they going to, you know, you can't just scream out, "Hey, Dad, come help us," because then you're just going to die even quicker. Yeah, it was a fun scene. Yeah, and once again, like on the top, before they fall in, they're kind of just having like a quick conversation, sign language conversation, and this, you know, the son, he's like, "Oh yeah, he'll come for us," like of course he'll be here, and the daughter just like, he's not coming, like either he's dead or he just doesn't, or he's busy with our mom. How the son has that kind of point of view of, oh, like Dad's gonna take care of us, like no matter what, don't have to do everything myself, whereas the daughter has that more kind of independent, like we need to figure out our own way out of this, we can't rely on him to come save us. So you kind of get that difference in perspectives, and that's kind of obviously what ultimately leads to that situation. So, and then that was like that was a really cool shot, how it shows like the kids after the creature leaves, and it kind of slowly zooms out, and you see like that the whole side of like the silo, like fucking like 3 inches of steel just like ripped apart. Yeah, punched right through it. Yeah. No problem.
That was a really cool shot. And then
as soon as they pop out of there is when they reconnect with their dad.
Yeah.
And what? So I'm trying to remember what happens exactly right there, because I know that they get into that truck, but I'm trying to remember why. I think they were trying to make some more noise first.
I think it was the dad wanted the kids to go to the truck to be quiet,
to be safe.
Yeah, because obviously the house wasn't necessarily the safest place at the time, just to kind of like wait the night out there, just because it's kind of enclosed.
Yeah,
and if they manage to stay quiet, you're gonna make less sound there. But and then obviously he tells them to go over there, and then I think initially the plan was he was going to tell his kids to go there, and then he was going to try to find a way to make some noise somewhere else to get the kids to leave.
Right.
Or to get the monsters to leave, and then he could draw them away, and then obviously he wasn't initially planning to get himself killed. But
yeah,
it kind of startled me when he's like slowly walking through like with the hatchet, and then all of a sudden the one creature is like on top of the shed or something and just hits him.
Yeah,
because up until the film that had never really happened, in that it never really attacked someone that was actually being quiet. There's always been like a constant kind of noise for it to attack.
Yeah, I guess the way I took it is when he like pulled the hatchet out of that barrel, like it made a little bit of noise, and then obviously when you're walking, like you can walk quietly, but you're never going to be like fully silent. So if one of the beasts is like right there, right above you already, then they would probably hear you walking.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I took it, and he just gets slashed big time and launched like 50 feet.
Yeah.
Like big launched. And then the kids kind of freak out and make some noise in the truck.
Yeah, the son just yells, and then he's
Dad!
like, no. Yeah.
Classic.
So then obviously, and then it goes to another shot of the daughter again with no sound, and you see like from behind her, and she's looking at the her brother, and you see his face like go like super wide and scared, and then all of a sudden the creature just like hits the truck and just like
trying to get in,
mauling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when the big John Krasinski, he wakes up, and boy does he ever, he grabs his hatchet and throws a little sign language, "I love you guys," and then
that too, like he was yelling for like a solid 10 seconds, and it's like I just feel bad for his vocal cords after, like he probably couldn't talk for like
he went in, and like it had a build up too, right? Like before he was actually screaming, he was just charging up. He was charging that forward smash.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that that's his sacrifice for his kids, And
that was I thought that was a really great scene though. And then the kids, obviously, the creature's killing the dad. Kids, I guess, put the truck in neutral and like drifted down the hill.
Big drifted, right down to Mama Bear, and then. And this is kind of like the end of the movie. This is like the last last scene.
It's like
right
10 minutes, even less maybe.
What's that?
This scene, like it was actually pretty short.
Yeah,
they have their little touchy moment where they kind of like reconnect and get back together, and the cue like the nice music.
And like he says that he forgives like his daughter for, or he wasn't mad at her, he loves her, and all that stuff, and kind of fulfills that storyline. Mm-hmm. And then this is where kind of like the end of the movie is, when the kids reconnect with the mother. They have the baby with them still, and the monster's in the basement with them, and they're kind of in like their dad's studio, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And essentially, the beast's in there trying to kill them, and the baby. I guess they're just trying to figure out how to solve the situation, because they have the baby there, and the baby could start crying at any point.
They did well in how because of like the static on the televisions.
The screen.
You see that it kind of it attracts, like the monster like hears that, and then it hits the screen, and then that's where it like clicks for the daughter that
because a couple other times in the movie, obviously we mentioned that the static of her hearing aid like kind of messed with the creature and made them kind of stand off a bit. Yeah, and so. When she sees that happen with the TV as well, she put two and two together, that it's not necessarily just like a loud noise or something that makes them like freak out. It's like that very specific static, like off-putting noise. Mm-hmm.
So then she takes the urinate that her dad made for her, and then because she had turned it off at this point, in the truck, and then so she turns it back on, and then she slams it up against the a microphone, which then just amplifies it exponentially, pretty much, and the creature just goes absolutely insane. Falls over, and then you it was really cool how like its skull like opened up. I thought that looked so cool.
The creatures did, because obviously that's the scene where you really get to you just get to look at it for like a minute straight. And I mean, I guess we didn't mention it yet, but the CGI of them, like they fit in with all the scenes really well, and it never looked like jarring or off-putting. Like it always felt like they were in the movie with like the actors
I thought it was really well done.
And plus they look really cool. Like a couple scenes where you get to see like their ear, which is just like a massive ear, and it has like layers to it. And then their heads kind of they just kind of like unravel, right? Like they kind of just spread out, and I guess
there's like a whole bunch of like scales of armor. And it's just like when they're trying to listen closely, they'll like move the scales from their ear and whatnot, and then because obviously it's like freaking out, so like just like spasming, and like you see all like little armor chips like all spread out, and you see it's like all red, and that was really cool. And then obviously when that's all open, Emily Blunt just big pops off with the shotgun and kills it.
Shoots him right in the head.
Right in the head.
Knocks him out. Cold.
Potentially killed it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think she did.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
She would.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And then, so, really, I guess the last shot then is of clearly some more beasts are coming from them because they just made loud noises, and she just, that cheesy smirk and the click of the shotgun.
Because they kind of figured out a weakness at last. That they actually have like a way to fight back. Mm-hmm. And movie cuts to black.
Yeah.
Overall,
What do you think of that ending? Because obviously it is a little bit cheesy.
Yep.
Which is worthy of mention because the rest of the movie doesn't feel cheesy at any point. Mm-hmm. Really, like maybe a couple little things here or there, but it never really stuck out to me.
I think it's for me. I don't have an issue with it. Obviously it's cheesy, and I would have liked a different ending, I think, but I have no fault with it just because it's one of those things where, like, how else would you end it? Like, they is in such a situation where obviously they have no, like, clothes.
If you don't want the movie to go, like, another 20 minutes.
Yeah, like, they have no clothes, like, everything's done and set, everything's settled. It's meant to be, like, an open ending.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to have a good way to end that. Mm-hmm. So I think they did what they could. I can't think of any other way they could have ended it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was good. Like, maybe if they had another 30 minutes, but then if you add another 30 minutes, it kind of takes away from the film in that it's just them killing the beast. And it moves away from the horror thriller
obviously,
that it's trying to be.
It would change probably a lot of things about the story and how you would have to do earlier sections as well.
So I think I was fine with it. I had no issues.
I think I feel the same way. It's not my favorite ending, but like, I don't know. I've seen worse endings for sure. Mm-hmm. I think it's good that, yes, it is like somewhat ambiguous in the sense you don't really know like if they are going to survive the next encounter with the thing when it comes down there. They could not, but I didn't feel like I guess necessarily need to see what that outcome was, for that particular situation.
Yeah, I think this movie especially too, like it wasn't really. The ending wasn't really what we were moving towards, I guess, in a way. Like, the movie wasn't built around getting this ending. The movie's about everything that kind of happens.
It's just here's one family's, life within this
It's about
world.
Telling the family stories. So, however they end it, like, it is what it is, but that's not the meaty part of the movie. So, it doesn't take... I wouldn't say it takes away from it at all.
No. Yeah, I don't think so either.
Mm-hmm.
We did
that's, yeah. Jeez, I'm trying to think if there's anything like else that really stands.
Well, I guess we didn't fully mention it, but the scene of the mother giving birth, like the facial reactions on Emily Blunt, like she really nailed that. You completely forget that it's an actor in the situation. Mm-hmm. Like I completely was like immersed in that scene, and that's not an easy scene to act, I would imagine.
No.
So yeah, big props to her because she had a lot of. I think she had like the hardest scenes, in this movie, and she nailed it perfectly.
Yeah. And then also the baby being the MVP, the quietest baby ever.
Very quiet baby.
Yeah.
He was crying when he was first born, but then he's like, I'm kind of done with that. I'm moving on in my life.
I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. Later.
Yeah. So I thought that was all just really. Overall, just a great film.
Yeah, it was just fun to see it unravel and see. Obviously, like it's just shitty thing after shitty thing, and I mean the ending. It is like a somewhat. I guess like the very ending, like when it fades out, is kind of like a happy little cliff note, but really, like they just lost, John Krasinski.
Yeah,
they just lost their husband, their father. So it's not a happy ending by any means, but it's still like. I don't know, I guess it's like some light at the end of the tunnel because they figured out how to temporarily stun these things and maybe they can share that information with
the thing is you also see that in the like you have on the board like surrounding like 3 confirmed in like the local area.
Yeah.
But it's like they literally shot a shotgun blast and fireworks. Like maybe there's some that were like 100 miles away that are now attracted to that. And
and that's,
we don't know if they're actually going to live through the.
And we don't really know how many of these things there is in general, right? Like there's. You have to wonder, you know, a place like New York City, what was going on when these things first dropped? Was there like hundreds of these things around, like going off, just because there's so many people and so much noise? And you know, obviously this is like kind of a subset little farm area. It's quieter. There's only 3 that they know of in the area. So yeah, you really don't know how many there is out there.
Yeah, so it definitely leaves it open. And like, what are they going to do after that? Kind of raising the kid. Who's gonna? Because obviously the mother's going to be out of commission for a while raising the child. So is then the son going to go out and go loot trips, or are they going to send both kids out? Yeah,
who's going to go share the information?
Exactly.
You know, that they just discovered.
And like, are they even going to be able to do that because they can't leave the farmhouse with the child?
Well, I think they would have to leave the farmhouse because I feel like this place is compromised already. I mean, I guess maybe if they do kill the 3 beasts that are in the area, maybe they're safe. But I kind of got the feeling like even if, like, let's say those beasts kind of come in, maybe there's a couple like lingering around that don't go in the basement right away. Like, I don't think that's much of a safe area. Like, there's been so much commotion going on there.
That's fair.
I mean, we also don't know if like any of the beasts like communicate with each other or what they're going on.
Yeah, because you never really saw more than. Like there at the end, you see the 2 running kind of side by side
in a camera,
in
a security camera.
Yeah, you never really see them actually interacting with each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, who knows?
There's that mystery behind them.
A lot of mystery, but I hope it doesn't get a sequel because I thought it was good where it was.
Yeah, I think that would kind of take away.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a horror thriller anymore.
Plus, you know, if you want to stick like if you wanted to make a sequel, do you stick with the idea of it being like silent, because obviously the silence plays into the plot of the movie in that the beasts are, you know, based off of auditory stimulus, but like obviously it was just like as a movie, the way it was directed, the way it was shot, the way the characters interact, that was, you know, a big part of it being a silent movie as well, right? It was kind of that was like the initial idea, and they decided to make like a suspense movie around it in this world. That's kind of the way I see it, right? So if you were to make a sequel, like, do you do that again? Like, I don't think that'd be as interesting.
No.
Obviously, you could still have some really cool scenes with that idea and how they switch from like perspectives of characters to what they're hearing. But yeah, it really this is a one-off movie, no doubt. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I just want to give one more shout out to the cinematography too. I think, especially with the lack of a soundtrack for or noise in general for most of the film, it's like you notice it so much more. And in this case, like, it was a good thing that you noticed a lot more. I think a lot of the shots of the farm at different, like, you get like that big like kind of overhead shot of it at different times of day. So you see it without the lights, and then there's the one pan of it as you see the lights kind of turning on, and then you see them like all the lights switch to red too, and like all of those shots were just really nice.
Yeah.
And just throughout the film, like everything had like
like that scene at the very beginning too, when they were just kind of cruising through that ghost town. Like, yeah, just a really really fun set to play with. And I mean, even though it's quick, but yeah, all of it. I love the the colors of it as well. Yeah. Solid movie to look at.
Indeed.
I don't think I have any other notes or mentions.
Nope.
I think
nothing for me either.
Pretty much covered it. Well, Tyler Briggs, do you want to drop a final rating? A little something to close it out?
Yeah. For me, I think this movie is I want to give it like a very durable 7.
Durable.
Yeah. I can't. I was deliberating on this a lot, but I don't think I can give it an 8. I don't think it's quite there. But again, this was like such a great movie for what it did.
Yeah.
So I thought I still think it's a great movie, and I would definitely recommend everyone. But I'm gonna stick at a good old 7 out of 10.
Clean 7.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I don't drop numbers for things, but yeah, I think this is a fun movie. It's something different. It kind of reminds me of last year or 2 years ago when Don't Breathe came out, and that's sort of like another thriller suspense movie that's kind of based off of a sort of idea like this where your antagonist is, he's blind, and that kind of plays into like a lot of the cinematography and how the suspense is built up. And this is kind of similar to that in, obviously, it just kind of switches the sense that you're kind of playing with. And yeah, really, it was a fun movie to see how they built around that. Solid acting, characters, and just a fun movie to watch. I'll definitely, I could see myself rewatching this, when it comes to Netflix in a year or two or whatever it is. And, I think I would recommend it to most people. I don't think it's like, if you're looking for a horror movie, this is definitely not it. Yeah. It's more, suspense and thriller, keep you on the edge of your seat, anxiety sort of dealio, but in a good way. In a good way. So
definitely.
So,
we have it.
That's our review of A Quiet Place. Where can the people find us? I'm going to throw it to you.
So, the people can find us on the internet.
The internet!
We are all over. You search geekversepodcast.com in the search bar, and you'll find it. You've got GeekVerse on Facebook, on YouTube, on SoundCloud,
on
most
iTunes.
social medias in general, most places where you find podcasts. Just type a quick GeekVerse. You can just put it in Google, GeekVerse Podcast. We'll be in a whole lot of different places. You can find us all over there.
Twitter is GeekVerse Cast, not podcast, GeekVerse Cast.
We may have slightly different things, but you'll always see our nice big black and green logo.
Big black, big green.
Yeah, lots of green, lots of black.
We got you covered.
We got it. You can find some of our t-shirts online, right?
Yeah, you can find our
t-shirts. If you
want
to support us.
You can find that through our website or through Facebook.
If you ever watch some of our video casts of us doing reviews or Gauntlet or stuff, you see us wearing some cool shirts. Mm-hmm. Good chance you'll find those if you want to try them on.
If you do want to join in.
We do a lot of other stuff other than just movie reviews, so please check us out if you have other interests. We do a lot of good stuff. I'm not going to get into all of those because that's going to be a while, but
you can also check out our Patreon where right now you can get access to a whole bunch of we've been doing a Marvel retrospective, preparing for Infinity War, watching all the movies that came out before we had the podcast, and kind of talking about those again and how they fit into the grand scheme of what the MCU is now with the 3,000 movies that are now in the MCU. Yep. So a lot of those are on Patreon right now, as well as Spider-Man Retro. So if you're into the comic stuff, Patreon's the place for you. Next week, I believe Rampage comes out, video game movie. So we'll be there. We'll be there with a review. I know I will be, at least. Don't know about you.
I will likely not. I'll be watching the movie, so I'll probably give you guys a rating, but I do work Friday nights right now, so I will not be there.
Yikes. So yeah, that'll be next week, probably Friday, but
who knows?
It's hard to schedule.
Saturday.
We're busy people. Oh, tomorrow as well, we're doing, we did this last year, WWE, the big event, Super Slam. I don't know what it's fucking called. We're doing a watch along, a live stream. It'll be me, Travis, and Taylor. I think Kirkland Jessica might stop by. You're working, so you probably won't be there. But yeah, that's just, I don't know. I don't really watch wrestling. Travis is a big wrestling guy, but we did it last year and we just kind of had fun with it, joked around, and I don't know, just a fun little live stream. So if you're tuning in that tomorrow, you might as well tune into our live stream as well. And that's pretty much it. So have an excellent day. Better tomorrow. Hope you had a great yesterday.
all bases are covered.
Every time is GeekVerse time. Cut the check.
Later, nerds.